Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let's take a look at what you should do to protect your data before you get rid of a Mac. MACMOST is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MACMOST.com/Patreon. There you can read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So conventional wisdom says that before you donate, sell, or recycle a Mac, you should do things to clean your data off of the internal drive so somebody can't get a hold of it and steal your information. Now exactly what you do depends on your Mac. There are three different situations. The first situation is if you have a much older Mac that is a spinning hard disk drive, not a modern solid state drive. The second situation is if you have an older Intel Mac with a solid state drive, but it's before Apple started putting the T2 security chip inside the Macs. And the third situation is if you have a modern Mac, either with the M1 processor or an Intel processor including the T2 chip. Now in all those situations you want to erase the Mac's hard drive and reinstall the operating system from scratch, basically resetting it to factory settings. Now the way you do this depends on the age of your Mac. With newer Macs you can go to System Preferences, and then once you're in System Preferences you won't find an option for it here. You just go to System Preferences, Erase All Content and Settings. And it's all right there. This is new in macOS Monterey. If you have an older Mac it's a little more complex. I'm not going to go into the details here because that's not what this video is about. But you can go to this page at Apple's site and it will walk you through how to reboot into recovery mode. Use Disk Utility there to erase your drive and then reinstall the operating system. The important thing to know is that when you get to the step where you erase your drive, if you're using a spinning hard drive, you'll have the option there to securely erase the drive. This is different than the basic erase. What a basic erase does is it gets rid of the directory of all the files and where all the parts of files are. You see, files are stored in individual little parts scattered throughout the hard drive. So this directory basically says this file has so many parts and they're scattered in different places and here's where to find them. You get rid of that and it's really difficult to put that file back together. And those parts are now just left out there and ready to be overwritten. So chances are by reinstalling the operating system you're going to overwrite a lot of those. So you're going to have scattered bits of files that are hard to decipher, and on top of that there are going to be some of them that are missing. So getting data from a spinning hard drive that's been erased normally is actually really difficult. Remember that most applications don't store documents in a straightforward way. You may see a bunch of words in a word processing document, but it's actually stored in a binary format. There's a jumble of words and different data in there. It's really hard to tell what's going on if you've ever looked inside one of those files. Plus on top of that, a lot of files are encrypted. For instance, if you're using a password manager to store passwords, that data is encrypted. Even if you could identify which parts made up your password file, they're going to be encrypted and impossible to decipher, especially since parts are probably going to be missing after you erase the drive. But you do have the option when erasing a spinning hard drive to securely erase the drive. What that does is, in addition to deleting the directory of where these files are, it will also overwrite every piece of every file. So it zeroes everything out, getting rid of all of your data. This will take a long time actually to go through the drive and write over everything. But it is generally recommended when you're erasing a spinning hard drive to do this. Now what about the second situation? You have an older Mac, it's got an Intel chip in it, but it doesn't have the T2 security chip. First, to identify whether or not your Mac has the T2 security chip, you can go here. There's a list on this page of all the Macs that include it and also how to check on your Mac to see whether or not the T2 chip is there. So let's assume you don't have the T2 chip. Here you can do the same thing to erase your Mac. But there is no way to securely erase it because that's an option only for hard drives, not for solid state drives. So how do you zero out all the data on a solid state drive? Well, the short answer is you don't. You don't really need to. Solid state drives have the information even more fragmented than a spinning hard drive. It's even harder, almost impossible, to get data off of a spinning drive. There are far easier ways to commit data crimes than actually trying to find some Mac with a solid state drive that somebody hasn't zeroed out. For instance, in the United States it's common to hand your credit card to waitstaff who take it out of sight to run it and bring it back to you. That's a really simple way to steal somebody's credit card data. And there are plenty of other ways to get valuable data like that as well that are way easier than trying to figure out the data on a solid state drive that's been erased. But another thing to keep in mind is perhaps you're using FileVault. You can check to see whether or not you have FileVault on by going to System Preferences and then going to Security and Privacy. And then with FileVault you can see whether or not you have it on. So FileVault encrypts all of your data. This is mostly useful while you're actually using your Mac, especially a portable Mac that you bring around to different places with you. If somebody steals your Mac, the data on the drive is encrypted. They can't get into it without your user password. Now when you erase a drive, all that encrypted data is now scrambled on top of being encrypted. It's impossible to get to. So there's no need to overwrite all the data because the data was encrypted in the first place. Now even if you're not using this and you erase the drive normally, you've really got nothing to worry about. Maybe if you're the head of a major corporation or the head of a government, then some spy agency might find it worthwhile to throw a lot of resources into trying to figure out what's on an erased drive. But chances are then you probably have a security department that handles that stuff for you. You're not asking me that question. However, if you did want to go and actually take extra precautions before selling, giving away, or recycling your Mac with a solid state drive, there's something really simple you could do. Turn on FileVault. Before you do anything else, when you're done with the Mac, you've moved on to your new one, turn FileVault on that old Mac, let it encrypt everything on the drive, then erase the drive and reformat. Now what about the third situation? That's where you have a newer Mac that either has Apple's own silicon processors in it like the M1 or it has an Intel chip but with the T2 security chip. Well, in those situations your drive is actually encrypted by default. You don't have to turn FileVault on for the data to be encrypted. So if you now erase the drive, you basically have fragmented sections of encrypted data. There's no way for anybody to get to it. So you're set. Just erase the drive, reinstall the operating system so whoever gets it next can use it, and you're set. Nobody can get to your data in that situation. So to summarize, in situation 1 with a hard disk drive, you go into recovery mode. You erase the drive using secure erase. So in situation 2, an SSD but before the T2 chip, if you have FileVault turned on, there's nothing to worry about. Just erase the drive and any data on there is now useless. And in situation 3, you're going to have an encrypted drive whether you're using FileVault or not because the T2 chip and the M1 processor both work to encrypt your data on the drive. So erasing the drive is all you need to do. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.